Part 1. The air inside the Viridia Moon Council chamber was cool and still, humming faintly with the energy of translation fields and climate regulators. Around the wide, circular table sat representatives from 23 star systems, each draped in robes or armor that reflected their culture, their history, their pride. At the far end, near the window that looked out onto the gas giant Viridian swirling in silent majesty, sat the human delegation. Daniel Hayes adjusted his collar for the third time in as many minutes. He wasn't nervous. He'd faced down warlords and corporate tyrants back on Earth. But the weight of this moment pressed on him like deep ocean water. Beside him, Lisa Monroe sat perfectly still. Her uniform was crisp, her expression unreadable. She was a soldier, not a diplomat, but Earth had sent her anyway. They needed someone who understood both words and weapons. Across the table, Zoran Vex of the Thalorian hegemony leaned forward, his long fingers steepled beneath his chin. His silver eyes gleamed with something between amusement and disdain. "The human proposal," Zoran said, his voice smooth as polished stone, "suggests joint defense protocols across all neutral sectors." A noble thought. But frankly, it reeks of desperation. Daniel kept his voice even. It's not desperation. It's foresight. The Krell have already tested 3 border worlds. If we wait until they strike a council member, it'll be too late. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some species shifted in their seats. Others exchanged glances. The Krell Dominion had been growing bolder, yes, but the council preferred to believe it was posturing, not preparation for war. Zoran chuckled softly. "Foresight or fear? Your species has only been spacefaring for 2 centuries. You speak of strategy as if you've weathered galactic winters. You haven't, you're children playing with fire." Lisa's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Protocol demanded silence from military advisors unless called upon. Daniel, however, had had enough. "We fought wars on our own world that killed hundreds of millions," he said quietly. "We've rebuilt cities from ash. We've sent probes beyond your mapped sectors. And yes, we've lost ships to pirates and raiders you pretend don't exist. But we learn, we adapt, and we don't ask for permission to protect our people." For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then a delegate from the Glinth Collective, a small amphibious species, nodded slowly. They'd lost a trade convoy to Krell raiders just last cycle. The council had done nothing. Zoran's smile didn't waver. "Admirable spirit. But spirit doesn't stop plasma cannons. Experience does. And you, Daniel Hayes, have none that matters here." That was the final straw. Daniel stood. The motion was calm, deliberate. He didn't slam his fist or raise his voice. He simply rose, straightened his jacket, and looked around the table, not with anger, but with clarity. "If this council cannot see humanity as equals," he said, "then we have no place here. We came in good faith. We offered solutions. You called them primitive. You called us children. Fine. Let the adults handle it until the Krell knock on your doors." He turned to Lisa. "We're leaving." Lisa stood without hesitation. She gave one sharp nod to the 2 junior officers seated behind them. Within minutes, the human delegation gathered their data slates, personal gear, and walked out of the chamber without another word. The silence they left behind was heavier than before. Outside, in the corridor lined with glowing moss and low-gravity walkways, Daniel took a deep breath. The recycled air smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Lisa walked beside him, her boots clicking softly against the floor. "You think they'll come after us?" she asked. "Not today," he replied. "But they'll talk. And when the Krell move, they'll remember we warned them." Back aboard the Earth vessel Odyssey, docked in Viridia's orbital bay, the crew waited in tense silence. Captain Elena Ruiz, no relation to the Earth president, though the shared surname often caused confusion, met them at the airlock. "They let you walk out?" she asked, disbelief in her voice. "They didn't try to stop us," Daniel said, "which tells me everything. Orders came through within the hour. All human personnel were to withdraw from joint operations. All data-sharing agreements with the Council were suspended. Earth was pulling back, not in fear but in principle. As the Odyssey undocked and fired its thrusters toward the jump point, Daniel watched Viridia shrink on the viewscreen. He felt no regret, only resolve. On Earth, news of the withdrawal spread fast. Some called it reckless. Others called it long overdue. In classrooms, factories, and spaceports, people debated what it meant. But one thing was clear. Humanity was done asking for a seat at a table that kept moving the chairs. Meanwhile, deep in Krell space, warships powered up their engines. The Dominion had been watching the Council talks through spies and hacked comms. They saw the humans leave. They saw the Council fracture. And they saw an opportunity. But what they didn't see, what no one in the Council saw, was what Earth had been building in secret for the past 5 years. Not just weapons, not just ships, but a new way of thinking, a new kind of strength, one that didn't need approval to exist. As the Odyssey vanished into the blue-white flash of a jump drive, the galaxy held its breath. The humans were gone from the talks, but they were far from gone from the game. And the Council, for all its ancient wisdom and grand titles, had just made its first real mistake in centuries. They thought humanity needed them. They were wrong. Part 2. Earth felt quieter after Viridia. Not in sound, cities still buzzed, trains still rattled, children still laughed in parks, but in mood. A kind of calm tension hung in the air, like the stillness before a summer storm. People watched the news more closely. They listened when officials spoke. And when President Elena Ruiz stepped onto the balcony of the Global Unity Hall in Geneva, millions stopped what they were doing to hear her. She didn't wear ceremonial robes or a military sash, just a simple dark suit, her hair pulled back, her eyes steady. She spoke without notes. "We did not leave the Council because we were weak," she said. "We left because we refused to be treated as less than we are. Humanity built its future with its own hands. We will not beg for a place in someone else's story." The speech lasted only 6 minutes, but it echoed across continents, space stations, and colony worlds. On Luna, miners paused their drills. On Mars, students in red-dusted classrooms turned off their lessons to watch. In the asteroid belt, freighter crews played the recording over shared comms. Some cheered, some worried, but almost all felt a quiet pride. Back in Washington, Daniel Hayes met with Admiral Chris Nolan in a secure briefing room beneath the old Pentagon ruins. The walls were lined with screens showing fleet movements, supply routes, and defense grids. Nolan was a broad-shouldered man with a salt-and-pepper buzz cut and a voice that never rose above a low rumble. "The Council's already sending feelers," Nolan said, tapping a display. "Zoran Vex tried contacting Earthcom 3 times yesterday. We ignored him." "Good," Daniel replied. "Let them sweat," Nolan nodded. "But it's not just them. The Glinth? They reached out through back channels. So did the Reliants. Even the Virile, they're scared. The Krell are massing near the Helios Rift. That's their problem," Daniel said. "Unless they attack us." "Not yet," Nolan admitted. "But they're testing, scanning our outer colonies, probing defenses. Then let them see what we've built." Over the next weeks, the United Terran fleet shifted like a sleeping giant turning in its sleep. Patrols that once flew alongside Council ships now operated alone. Human outposts recalled their joint task personnel. Trade routes were rerouted through neutral systems, some so small the Council had never bothered to map them properly. Earth wasn't hiding, it was reorganizing. On Ceres 7, a mining colony in the outer belt, engineers worked double shifts installing new sensor arrays. These weren't the old passive scanners. These were quantum-linked, AI-assisted systems that could detect a cloaked ship 3 systems away. On Titan, drone factories hummed day and night, assembling thousands of small, fast interceptors designed to swarm and disable larger vessels. None of this was flashy. None of it was meant for show. It was all practical, efficient, human. Meanwhile, Earth scientists shared quiet breakthroughs with species the Council had long ignored. A water purification system went to the drought-stricken Kavani. A compact fusion core design was sent to the nomadic Celtari fleet. In return, Earth received rare minerals, navigational data from unmapped nebulae, and most importantly, trust. These weren't alliances signed in grand halls. They were handshakes in cargo bays, encrypted messages between freighter captains, favors traded in the dark between equals. Lisa Monroe oversaw much of this from her new post at the Interstellar Coordination Center in Reykjavik. The facility was built into an old geothermal plant, shielded by rock and ice. From there, she coordinated not just defense but diplomacy of a different kind, quiet, direct, and honest. One evening, she reviewed a report from Proxima Outpost. A Thalorian trader had tried to dock, claiming engine trouble. The outpost commander, a young woman named Maya Torres, had let him in. but only after scanning his ship twice and stationing armed guards nearby. The trader had been polite, even grateful. But before he left, he'd asked, "Is it true Earth won't help the Council if war comes?" Maya had replied, "Earth helps those who respect us." The trader had nodded slowly, as if filing that away for later. Back on Earth, life went on. Markets opened, schools taught, farmers planted crops under domes on Mars. But beneath the surface, everything had changed. People spoke less about joining the galaxy and more about protecting what's ours. Children drew pictures not of Council ambassadors, but of Terran pilots and engineers. Songs played on public channels praised not conquest, but resilience. President Ruiz made one more broadcast that month, this time from a shipyard in orbit around Jupiter. Behind her, the hull of a new class vessel, Aegis I, glinted in the sunlight. It wasn't a warship. Not exactly. It was a mobile command and shield platform, designed to protect entire colonies during an attack. "We don't seek war," she said, "but we will not be victims. Our peace is not weakness. It is choice," the galaxy watched. Some scoffed. The Thalorians called it theatrics. The Krell dismissed it as noise from a minor species. But others, smaller, quieter species, listened closely. They remembered how the humans had treated them when the Council turned away. They remembered the clean water, the working engines, the fair trades, and they began to wonder. On Luna, Daniel stood on a viewing deck looking down at Earth. Blue, green, swirling with clouds, beautiful, fragile, strong. Lisa joined him a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. "They think we're bluffing," she said. "Let them," he replied. "Bluffs only work if you're willing to follow through." She sipped her coffee. "We're ready," he nodded. Then we wait. In deep space, far beyond human borders, a Krell scout ship altered course. Its sensors had picked up unusual energy signatures near Series 7. Not weapons. Not shields. Something new. Something they couldn't identify. The captain ordered a closer look. He didn't know it yet. But he was flying toward the first real test of what humanity had become since walking out of that chamber on Viridia. And Earth, for the first time in its interstellar history, wasn't asking anyone's permission to defend itself. Our scene, the Krell struck without warning. Not at a Council world. Not at a Thalorian outpost. They hit the Virel mining colony on Helios Minor, a small, lightly defended rock rich in rare metals. 3 Krell warships dropped out of warp at dawn cycle, their plasma cannons burning through the colony's shield before the alarm could even sound. Within hours, the settlement was ash and silence. The Virel sent desperate calls to the Council. The Council debated for 2 days before voting to send a reconnaissance fleet. By then, the Krell had already moved on. Zoran Vex stood before the emergency session, his usual calm replaced by something sharper. "This is what we feared," he said. "The Dominion grows bold. We must act." But the old divisions remained. The Glinth refused to commit ships without guarantees of protection. The Relians argued the Krell were only testing borders. No one wanted to be the first to bleed. Then Zoran did something no one expected. He asked for help from Earth. A formal request was sent through neutral channels. It was polite, almost humble. It spoke of shared interests, mutual survival, and past misunderstandings. It arrived at EarthCom headquarters in Nairobi. Admiral Chris Nolan read it once, then passed it to Daniel Hayes without comment. Daniel sat with it for a long time. He remembered the smug look in Zoran's eyes on Viridia. He remembered the way the Council had laughed behind closed doors at human overconfidence. Now they were scared. Now they needed him. He called Lisa Monroe. "What do you think?" he asked. "They're not asking for friendship," she said. "They're asking for a shield. And they expect us to hold it for them while they hide behind it." "Exactly," he drafted a reply, short, clear, no anger, no gloating. Just facts. Earth maintains a policy of neutrality in conflicts between non-human powers. We do not intervene in disputes that do not threaten Terran citizens or interests. We wish the Council success in its efforts. The message was sent. Within the hour, it leaked to the galactic news nets. Some called it cold. Others called it just Zoran was furious. In private, he called humanity ungrateful upstarts. In public, he said nothing. But the Krell were watching. And they saw an opportunity. If Earth wouldn't fight for the Council, maybe Earth wouldn't fight at all. Maybe the humans were bluffing. Maybe their silence meant weakness. So they turned their eyes toward the edge of human space. Series 7 was chosen carefully. It wasn't a major world, just a rocky outpost with a few thousand workers deep in the asteroid belt. But it was symbolic. It was where Earth had first tested its new defense grid, and it was lightly guarded, or so the Krell believed. Their task force arrived at midnight shift local time. 2 destroyers, 1 command cruiser. They powered up their weapons, expecting to find old-style turrets and slow response teams. They expected to smash, grab data cores, and leave before Earth even knew they were there. They were wrong. The moment the Krell ships crossed the outer sensor perimeter, alarms blared across Series 7, but not the old kind. These were silent alerts sent directly to every defense node in the system. Within seconds, the station's AI, named Warden, activated the drone bays. Hundreds of small black interceptors launched from hidden ports in the asteroid's surface. They moved fast, faster than anything the Krell had seen. No pilots, no life signs. Just smart, fast machines guided by quantum-linked targeting. The Krell fired. Their plasma bolts tore through the first wave, but the drones didn't fly in straight lines. They swarmed like insects, splitting, fainting, overwhelming fire control systems with sheer numbers. Then the railguns spoke. Mounted deep inside Series 7, 3 massive electromagnetic cannons fired tungsten slugs at near light speed. The first shot punched clean through the lead destroyer's engine core. The second shattered the command cruiser's bridge. The third never needed to fire. The surviving Krell ship tried to retreat, but the drones harried it, slicing through its thrusters with micro-lasers. Within minutes, it was dead in space, drifting. Back on Earth, the news came in fragments at first. A sensor spike. Then a burst transmission from Series 7. Contact confirmed. Threat neutralized. Admiral Nolan stood in the command center, watching the feed from the drones. The Krell wreckage floated in silence. No survivors. No escape pods. The Dominion had come to test humanity and failed completely. Within hours, the footage spread. Not just to Earth, but to every system with a working comms array. The Glint played it in their council halls. The Relians studied the drone tactics. Even the Thalorians watched, their faces unreadable. Zoran Vex requested another meeting. Not with diplomats. With military leaders. He wanted to know how Earth had done it. Earth didn't answer. Instead, President Ruiz made a short statement. Series 7 is a peaceful mining station. It exists to support human life, not to provoke war. But we will defend our people, always. The Krell High Command went silent. For the first time in decades, they faced an enemy they didn't understand. Human tech wasn't flashy like Thalorian energy shields. It wasn't massive like Virel dreadnoughts. It was quiet, efficient, deadly, and it worked. On Mars, school children watched the drone footage in science class. Teachers explained swarm logic, AI coordination, and kinetic weapons. On Luna, engineers celebrated with quiet toasts. On Earth, people slept easier, but Daniel Hayes knew this was only the beginning. The Krell wouldn't accept defeat. They would come again, bigger, smarter, angrier. Lisa Monroe agreed. They'll study the wreckage, she said. They'll adapt. Then we stay ahead, Daniel replied. In hidden shipyards beyond Neptune, new drone models rolled off assembly lines. On orbital platforms, scientists refined the Warden AI, teaching it to predict enemy moves before they happened. Earth wasn't building an empire. It was building a wall, and every brick was made of steel, silicon, and resolve. The galaxy had thought humanity would crumble without the Council's blessing. Instead, humanity had built something better than blessing. They had built certainty, and out in the dark, the Krell stared at the stars, wondering what else the humans were hiding. Part 4. The silence from Krell space lasted 17 days. Then came the second attack, not on Series 7 this time, but on a freighter convoy near the Neptune drift. 3 human cargo ships, hauling ice and machine parts from the outer colonies, were ambushed by a single Krell raider. It was fast, sleek, and cloaked, designed for hit-and-run strikes. It disabled the lead freighter with an ion pulse, then moved in to board. But the freighter crews were ready. Hidden turrets unfolded from the hulls. Automated point defense guns spat flechettes into the void. And from the belly of the middle ship, a dozen micro-drones launched, not to destroy, but to jam. They flooded the raider's sensors with noise, scrambled its comms, and latched onto its hull like metal ticks. Within minutes, the Krell ship lost control. Its engines sputtered, its shields flickered out. Instead of finishing it, the convoy hailed it. "This is Captain Rosa Lynn of the Steadfast," a calm voice said over open channel. "You have 30 seconds to power down and prepare for boarding. Resist and we will disable you permanently." The Krell didn't respond. But they didn't fight either. They powered down. When Earth security teams boarded the Raider, they found something unexpected. Not warriors, scouts, young officers, barely out of training, sent to test human defenses again, this time up close. They were scared, confused. One of them kept repeating, "We were told you had no real weapons." News of the capture spread fast. The Council demanded the prisoners be handed over for interrogation. Earth refused. Instead, President Ruiz ordered the scouts treated fairly, given food, medical care, and access to a neutral translator. After 3 days, they were released with a message. "Tell your commanders," Daniel Hayes said, standing before them in a clean white room on Luna Station, "that Earth does not seek war, but we will not be tested again. Next time there will be no warning, no mercy." The scouts left shaken. Within a week, Krell patrols pulled back from human borders, but the real shockwave came not from the Krell, it came from the Council. Zoran Vex arrived at Luna Station without fanfare, no entourage, no ceremonial robes. Just a single aide and a data slate. He requested a private meeting with Lisa Monroe, now Director of Interstellar Affairs. She agreed, but only in a public observation lounge, with clear glass walls and open comms. He looked older, tired. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. "The Krell are regrouping," he said quietly. "They're angry, humiliated. They will strike harder next time." Lisa sipped her tea. "Then stop them." "We can't," he admitted. "Our fleets are slow. Our command structure is tangled in debate. We built a system for peace, not war. And now, we are unready." She studied him. "Why tell me this?" "Because you are ready," he said. "And because I was wrong." The words hung in the air. He didn't say it loudly, didn't make a show. But for a Thalorian elder, it was as close to apology as he could come. Lisa set her cup down. "Earth won't rejoin the Council. Not as it is." "I know," he said. "But what if it changes?" She didn't answer right away. Outside the window, a Terran freighter glided past, its hull marked with the blue and white Earth seal. Simple, strong, unbroken. "We're not interested in fixing your table," she finally said, "but we might build a new one, with others who've been left out." Zoran nodded slowly. "The Glinth support you. So do the Seltari. Even the Varel whisper your name with respect now." "Then talk to them," Lisa said. "Not just to us. Build something real, not just for the powerful. For everyone." He left an hour later, quieter than when he arrived. Back on Earth, Daniel watched the meeting feed from Geneva. He knew what was coming. The old order was cracking, and humanity wouldn't fill the void. It would reshape it. Meanwhile, deep in the Oort cloud, far beyond public view, the final phase of Project Aegis powered on for the first time. It wasn't a weapon, not exactly. It was a network. Thousands of small satellites, each carrying a compact shield generator and AI core. Linked together, they could project a planetary defense field strong enough to stop orbital bombardment. The first test covered Mars. The shield held for 6 hours before the generators needed recharge. It was enough. Scientists called it impossible. Engineers called it expensive. Soldiers called it hope. Word of Aegis didn't leak, not yet, but rumors did. Whispers of Earth's invisible wall spread through spacer bars and trade hubs. Some dismissed it as myth, others believed. And the Krell? They began to doubt their own plans. On Series 7, workers returned to their shifts. The wreckage of the Krell ships had been towed away, studied, then recycled into new parts. Life went on, but everyone knew the peace was fragile. Lisa returned to Reykjavik. She met with Admiral Nolan and a small team of diplomats from non-aligned systems. No grand titles, no formal treaties, just honest talk about shared security, open data, and mutual aid. They spoke for hours. By dawn, they had the bones of a new alliance, one without a name yet, but with a clear purpose. Earth would not lead it, not in the old way, but it would stand with it. In Geneva, President Ruiz met with representatives from 12 human colony worlds. They voted unanimously. No more begging, no more waiting. From now on, Earth would act, not out of pride, but principle. And out in the stars, the galaxy watched. The Thalorians watched. The Krell watched. Even the quiet species in the outer arms watched. Because something had changed. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had shown others how. And in doing so, it had become something the Council never expected. Not a petitioner, not a pawn, but a pillar. And pillars don't ask for permission to stand. Part 5. The Krell did not attack again. Not because they had given up, but because they had lost the will to try. After the failed raids and the silent strength of Earth's defenses, their high command grew divided. Some wanted total war, others feared what waited in human space. Then came the final blow, not from weapons, but from within. 3 of their vassal species, long treated as little more than laborers, rose up in open rebellion. They had seen how Earth treated its allies. They had heard the stories of fair trade, shared tech, and respect. And they wanted the same. The Krell were suddenly fighting on 2 fronts. Their fleet, once feared across 5 sectors, was stretched thin. Desperate, they did what no one expected. They sent a message not to the Council, but directly to Geneva. It was short, simple, signed by their Grand Strategos himself. We seek peace, not with the Council, with Earth. President Ruiz read it in her office at dawn. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply nodded and said, "Bring them to Mars." The talks were held in the New Valleys settlement, a dome city built into the red cliffs of the canyon. No grand hall, no hovering thrones, just a round table, clear air, and sunlight filtering through reinforced glass. Daniel Hayes and Lisa Monroe sat across from 2 Krell envoys, tall, scarred, their armor dulled by battle. They spoke through translators, but their eyes said more than words ever could. They asked for terms. Daniel gave them one. Leave the neutral systems alone, free your vassal species, and never again test human borders. The Krell hesitated. Then slowly they agreed. No one celebrated, not yet. But for the first time in decades, the outer systems breathed easier. Back on Viridia, the Council met one last time in its old form. Zoran Vex stood before the assembly, not as a proud elder, but as a changed man. He spoke for an hour. He admitted their failures, their arrogance, their blindness, and then he proposed something radical. The old Council is broken, he said. Let us not fix it. Let us replace it. What followed was not a vote, but a quiet consensus. One by one, species stood, not to argue, but to agree. The Thalorians, the Viral, the Glinth, even the Relians. They would dissolve the old structure and form a new alliance, not ruled by tradition, but guided by need. And they would invite Earth, not as a junior member, but as a founding voice. Earth did not say yes right away. President Ruiz consulted colony leaders, military advisors, and even school teachers and factory workers. The answer came back the same from all, only if it's real. So Earth set conditions. Equal representation, shared defense, open access to knowledge, no hidden hierarchies. The new alliance would not be a throne for the powerful. It would be a table for all. The Krell, now negotiating in good faith, joined as observers. Their vassal species were given full seats. Even the smallest nomadic fleets were invited to speak. The signing ceremony happened on Mars, under the same dome where peace with the Krell began. Daniel Hayes and Lisa Monroe stood side by side with leaders from a dozen worlds. No flags dominated the room. No single symbol hung above them. Just a simple emblem, a circle of stars, each one equal in size and light. Afterward, as the sun set over the red plains, Daniel walked outside with Lisa. The air was thin but clean. In the distance, Earth hung in the sky, a pale blue dot, bright against the black. They finally get it, Lisa said. Not all of them, Daniel replied. But enough. They didn't speak for a while. Just watched the stars come out. Back on Earth, people gathered in parks and plazas. Not for speeches, but for quiet reflection. Children pointed to the sky, imagining Mars, Luna, the distant outposts where humans stood not as beggars, but as equals. Factories hummed with purpose. Schools taught not just history but responsibility. The war hadn't been won with fire but with patience, with dignity, with the simple, stubborn refusal to be less than they were. In the months that followed, the new alliance began its work. Joint patrols formed along former border zones. Medical ships from Earth visited worlds that had never seen human faces before. Data archives were opened. Old secrets were shared. And slowly trust grew. Not because it was demanded, but because it was earned. The Krell kept their word. Their warships returned home. Their vassal species formed their own governments. Some even sent students to Earth universities. The galaxy did not become perfect overnight, but it became fairer, and through it all, Earth did not seek to lead. It simply showed what was possible when you stand on your own feet and still offer your hand. Years later, historians would call this era the Turning, not because of battles or treaties, but because of a choice. The choice to walk away from a broken table and build a better one. Daniel Hayes retired to a small farm in Oregon. Lisa Monroe stayed on as an advisor, but spent more time mentoring young diplomats than attending summits. Admiral Nolan returned to teaching at the Luna Academy, and President Ruiz, after her term ended, opened a school for interstellar ethics in Nairobi. None of them called themselves heroes. They were just people who believed humanity deserved respect and were willing to prove it. Out in the stars, the new alliance grew. More species joined, old enemies became neighbors, and whenever doubt crept in, someone would tell the story of the humans who walked out of a council chamber and changed the galaxy not by force, but by example. The council had thought humanity needed them. They were wrong. Humanity had simply been waiting for the galaxy to catch up.